Welcome to my channel. My name's Jared. This is another Sunday update video. I also post silent build videos on Wednesdays, so be sure to check those out as well. Today, we're going to talk about the 356, a little bit about the Land Cruiser, and also a little bit about the Bushmaster. Okay, so the 356. So if you saw my last video on this car, you would have seen that I summarized the entire build series into one video. So that was around, I think, probably 7 months of work cut into that one video, and so you get to see it go from being crushed to being a driving functional car like it is. I mentioned in my last update video that I'm going to be taking this car on a road trip soon, and the plan is to drive it from Los Angeles to San Francisco. That's normally about a 6-hour drive if you take the 5 interstate, but that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend 2 days each way, 2 days going up and 2 days coming down, and I'm going to drive along the coast. It's a much longer route, it's a much slower route, it's much more enjoyable. The freeway goes through the desert and it's like 100 degrees out there. I'm going to be right on the coast, and so I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great drive. Now, in preparation for that, not only did I buy my nice vintage luggage to go on the rack, which was obviously very important, but I have been driving the car a lot to try to figure out if anything's going to fail and trying to address any issues that I can find. And also, I want to put enough miles on it so that I can then do another oil change and adjust the valves again before I leave. So I've basically just been driving the car as much as possible. I've got about, I think, 350 miles or so on it now. I want to hit at least 500 before I do the oil change and the valves again, ideally even more than that. But so the car's doing really good. There are still some squeaks in the rear end, and I believe it's the shocks. I'm hoping it's either the shocks or the torsion arms, the bushings that go on the torsion arms, and I've ordered both of those. So I should get them before I leave for the trip, and I can replace those. Also, the front end, I mentioned before, the steering was a little bit loose, and so I replaced the tie rod ends, but it's still just a slightly loose. There's one freeway near me where it has grooves. The way they put, it's like a pavement freeway, not an asphalt freeway, and there's kind of these grooves cut in it, I think, to help with when it's wet, to give you traction. But the grooves, the machine that cuts them, they're going straight with the freeway, but sometimes the machine moved a little bit, and so the grooves kind of move. So anyway, lots of cars that I've driven on that freeway will kind of drift and try to follow those lines in the freeway. And this car does that a little bit more than most. So there's still a little bit more play in the front end than there should be. So I didn't replace the wheel bearings when I had the hubs off because they seem to be in good shape. And sometimes I'm afraid that aftermarket bearings are not going to be as good as the original ones. So I don't replace them just to replace them, even though they're cheap and easy to do. But now I am going to replace the front wheel bearings. So hopefully that'll fix that little bit of looseness in the front end. If that's not it, I think the only thing left that it could be would be the steering box. And I don't plan on getting into that anytime soon. So it's not bad the way that it is. It's actually fine. I could drive it as it is, but I'm going to go ahead and put those wheel bearings in before I leave, just to see if that tightens it up. And then I also have the stabilizer shock that I'm going to replace on the front end. Again, the one that's on it seems perfectly fine. I don't think it needs to be replaced, but I'm going to replace it just to see if that tightens up that steering a little bit. So basically, I've got a little bit of things to do on the suspension, but other than that, it's doing really well. I don't think I've had any other issues. I've got the carburetors tuned a little bit better. I'll show you the engine. It's been a little while, I think, since you saw. I don't think I ever really showed the engine complete on camera. But the engine is doing good. I got these air cleaners, which are not cheap, but I was able to source those for it. So yeah, everything's doing good in here. So basically, I think that's pretty much it for the 356. Now, we'll talk about the Land Cruiser real quick. So, as you can see, I've got the frame back in the garage for the Land Cruiser, and I do plan on getting back on this project very soon. It's always been my plan. Once I finish the 356, I would get back on the Land Cruiser, and that's still what I plan on doing. I am going to work on the Bushmaster first, because I think that's going to be one video, and then that thing will be completely done. So I want to finish that up, but then we are going to be right back here on the Land Cruiser. And just as a reminder, obviously the body is off of the frame. The main thing to do right now is to finish up the metal work on the body, and then I'm going to paint the undercoating on the body, and I'm going to paint the firewall, and then I'm going to put it back on the frame. And then from there, I'll work on the outside body work. I'll finish up the outside of the tub and paint it, and then I can start working on the front fenders and hood and grille and windshield and get all that stuff painted and back on there. And once that's done, I can drive it. So the plan is that I will most likely get just the tub and the front end and everything on it and drive it as a convertible, at least maybe for a little while I'm working on the hardtop. So the hardtop, I think, will be kind of the last part of the project. I can take my time kind of cleaning that up, painting it, and getting it done, but this thing won't be functional by then. So anyway, that's the Land Cruiser, and that's what's going to be coming up on that. Now we'll talk about the Bushmaster. So for those of you that don't know, this is my Bushmaster. This is a Nissan pickup, and you can see here it's called the Bushmaster. So this is an 84, I believe, 85. I think it's an 84. And back in the day, this company would take the brand new truck. The company was called Matrix 3. They would take a brand new truck, and they would cut the top off of it, and they would weld the bed to the cab, and then they would put this fiberglass topper on there, and you can see there's a back seat in here. And so essentially they made the first Nissan SUV long before, or not long before, but before Nissan ever sold an actual SUV. So they turned a king cab pickup truck into an SUV. So they're pretty rare. The build quality on them is not the greatest. It's not terrible, but you know, it was a dealer option. It wasn't a factory option. And so you can see here's the inside of the truck. So they put some structural supports here, I'm sure, for rollover, and there's a kind of a roll bar in the back. But the top is just a fiberglass top, and they just, you can see they cut the metal roof out and they just welded this thing on. And so the headliner obviously is gone. It was gone when I bought it. So the next step on this truck is going to be to finish the interior. I've got a new carpet kit for it. I've got a dash cover. I've got material, and I'm going to build a whole custom headliner that's actually going to be a little bit different than what came in it, but I think hopefully better than what came in it. And basically I'm just going to finish this thing all out. So once the inside's done, the truck's basically done. If you haven't seen this series, you should go back and check it out. I mean, this thing has come a very long way from where it was when I bought it. It didn't have an engine. It had ugly wheels on it. You know, it needed a ton of work. It sat outside for a very long time. The paint looked awful. It buffed out really nice, but it looked awful when I got it. So now I've rebuilt the engine. It runs excellent. I had this thing parked in storage for months. Didn't touch it for months. And I cranked it over. It took a while, of course, to get fuel into the carburetor. It's a carbureted engine. But once it got fuel in the carburetor, it fired right up. It idled perfect. It did a high idle until it warmed up, and then it dropped down. I mean, it runs excellent. These are a little bit underpowered because it's just a little 4-cylinder in there. So they're not a fast vehicle by any means, but it just runs excellent. Just starts up and runs. So anyway, that is the Bushmaster, and so this is going to be coming up very soon. Like I said, I want to just finish this up and be done with it. And I was going to do this a long time ago, but then the Model T videos became popular, and I put this in storage and finished the Model T, and then I got the 356, and things just kept piling up. But I really want to finish this one and get it done because it's so close. And then, like I said, we'll be moving on to the Land Cruiser. And I do have another project that's going to be coming up soon, but I don't think it's going to affect the Land Cruiser too much. I think it'll be a relatively small build as far as the number of episodes. And I think I'll probably just be working on that when I don't have the things I need to work on the Land Cruiser. So anyway, that's it for this week, guys. Thanks for watching. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing.